Joining me now is Democratic Senator Mark Warner of Virginia, the vice chairman of the Intelligence Committee. Senator Warner, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Let me start with the firing of Secretary Esper. You have said you do not want the president to fire any other Senate-confirmed intelligence or national security officials over the next 70-plus days. Why not?
Well, first of all, we are, as the lead-in uncharted territory. We've never had an administration, even looking back at the conflict between Bush-Gore, where you have these kind of arbitrary firings. And, President Trump has still got roughly 70 days. Our adversaries know during transitions we may have vulnerabilities. And the idea that clearly Secretary Esper appeared to be fired out of Trump's frustration that he said it was not appropriate for military forces to be used against civilians in Lafayette Square, the idea that Mr. Trump would then potentially take down a director of the FBI or CIA or NSA would just be a bridge too far if we want to make sure that we protect our country's national security during this transition time. This is, again, there's never been a time when a senior official like this has been fired during a transition period between one administration to another.
Senator, I think, my day job is covering the White House as the chief White House correspondent for NBC News. I've been covering the president for 4 years. One of the things I'm hearing about now from people in Washington, those in and around the president's orbit, is speculation about others who may end up fired. Specifically, I think the name has been raised, FBI Director Chris Wray, perhaps CIA Director Gina Haspel. I am wondering, based on your assessment of this, are you concerned that others could be on the chopping block here? And if so, who?
I've heard those rumors as well, and I think it would be an extraordinary challenge and be totally counter to the United States national security interest if Director Haspel, Director Wray, or any other senior national security official were dismissed at this point. We're going to be having in Director Haspel this afternoon at the Intel Committee. I'm urging my Republican colleagues who still have some heft with this White House to weigh in because we have seen, even prior to the dismissal of Esper and these other rumors, we've seen actions coming out of the White House against our intelligence community professionals that ought to concern us all. Again, echoing what President-elect Biden has said, we're past the time of the election. We're Americans first, and my Republican colleagues who have been good partners. The intelligence community and our committee has been one bright spot of bipartisanship. Let's not have that undermined in the last 70 days of a Trump administration, particularly when the president appears to be firing these folks or potentially firing these folks because they've not simply been falling in line as Trump loyalists. That is not the job of the intelligence community. The job of the intelligence community is to speak truth to power.
You mentioned leaning on some of your Republican colleagues on the Intelligence Committee to use their, as you said, heft with the president to convince him to keep some of these officials in place. And I wonder if, as it relates to the president's refusal to concede this election, if you are hearing something different from your Republican colleagues in the Senate versus what they are saying publicly, which is, frankly, with the exception of 4 senators on the Republican side who have acknowledged President-elect Joe Biden, has been largely silence or defense of the president.
I think my hope is at least you'll see that change over the coming days, particularly as Georgia and Arizona get called, particularly as we've seen no evidence put forward by the Trump administration, as we've seen these frivolous lawsuits dismissed, that other individuals will speak out. I can tell you the intelligence, my colleagues, Republican colleagues, have a variety of times. I'm not going to speak to those at this moment, but a variety of times over the last couple of months, I think have weighed in. We have tried to protect the integrity of the intelligence community when it's been under assault, and it's been under active assault a number of times in the last 60 days. And again, I'm hoping we've kept this community and our committee balanced, bipartisan, and only after the truth for 3.9% of the last years. Let's finish out this last 70 days in that same fashion. Because again, the intelligence Committee meets behind closed doors for the vast majority of the time because what we talk about is classified. What we talk about is national security. And I'm very proud of the fact that 90% of those conversations are totally bipartisan.
Senator, I have a few other topics to get to quickly if we can before we're out of time in this segment. But first, the New York Times reporting on the national security implications of that refusal to concede and what it could mean for the transition, with the president-elect not yet apparently receiving that PDB, the presidential daily briefing, no clarity about his team getting access to classified information yet. What happens if that doesn't happen?
Well, again, that's one of the areas where we need, this could go on a day or two more, but President-elect Biden needs access to the presidential daily brief. This gives you that snapshot in the world. And the idea that we've got this political hack over at GSA holding up this process as a Trump loyalist is outrageous. That's the bad news. The good news is, though, that we have seen career officials time and again stand up against this president's attempt to politicize the bureaucracy. We saw just yesterday the head of the election security outfit at the Department of Justice resign in protest.
Let me ask you about that.
Attorney General Barr's, I think, outrageous effort to, well, there was plenty of caveats on what Barr said in terms of opening DOJ investigations. Clearly, it didn't meet the smell test if the head of the Election Security Division resigned.
Did it meet your standard of appropriateness?
No, again, I've been disappointed by Attorney General Barr consistently that he seemed to be more loyal to the president than to rule of law in this country. But as we've seen, every time he takes this action, both current and former DOJ officials of both parties stand up. In many ways, while we are fretting at the outrageousness of the Trump administration, I hope we can all essentially take a deep breath. Time and again, I think we've shown that our institutions are strong. I tell you, a week after the election, we got through this in a way that was much better than what I anticipated. 2 weeks out, some of that credit ought to go to Chris Krebs at CISA, which is the part of DHS that protects election security.
Yeah.
So I think the long-term professionals have stood strong. We just got to have their back over the next 70 days, and we need to make sure that we pressure the administration to go ahead from PDB to protecting our national security officials, but not misusing the DOJ. And I think that's, I hope we'll see some added bipartisanship in that next couple of days.
Thank you for checking out our YouTube channel. Why don't you subscribe? It's really easy. Just click on that button down there. And for more news from MSNBC, click on any of these videos here for the latest interviews and highlights. You can get more videos from MSNBC with our newsletters. Head over to msnbc.com/newsletters to sign up.